Welcome to Living the Authentic Life. I have two incredible girl bosses here today. Lauren Sparks, who is you have been in the banking industry for
long time,
30 plus years. You are Chief Banking Officer. Laquita Cyprian is Chief Banking Officer, and you are founder, chairman, and chairwoman, and CEO of this amazing new bank called Agility Bank.
Yes,
I was introduced to you guys through my cousin John Cangelosi, but I know another woman who's a total girl boss, Edna Meyer Nelson, who's involved with you guys. And I bring together, every week we talk with people that are living authentically and they have a purpose and are really connecting with community. And when I met you guys, I thought this is exactly in line with everything. You are bringing women in the community together to found a bank that is primarily owned by women and services everyone,
yes,
but has a focus on particularly helping women and minorities. So speak a little bit to how that even came about, because it's not normally done this way.
It was a good question, great question. Everybody asked me, how did this come about? I believe that it came about as a natural progression. You get to a point in your life, I think, where you stop looking as far forward as you're looking behind you, and you're saying, what's happening behind me? Who's coming along behind me? What's the future like for other women? And I really came to a realization that, having been the only woman in the boardroom in the context of my career, which was within community banks, and seeing that not changing, that something needed to change, both for women in financial services as well as for women-owned business, because I'm also a woman-owned business. And that experience makes you realize that maybe you're a minority in who's being able to be successful or who's starting businesses, and that needs to change.
And Laquita, you have an amazing background also in banking, but you have a philanthropic background serving as chairwoman of an amazing group that helps bring kids up. Tell us a little bit about it's STEM?
Yes, CSEM.
Tell us a little bit about that and how that became your purpose and how that intertwines with what you do with business.
Sure. Well, I became involved with CSTEM because of a good friend, Dr. Reagan Flowers. And as I grew up, I knew that exposure was very important to help people grow and flourish. And as a result of that, I got involved with CSTEM to help her create the mission and build on and grow and create more opportunities for children.
And it's math, science,
engineering, and technology.
Which
communication is the first part of it. C is for communication.
Because I guess specifically with COVID, we've seen that there's been so many kids that have been left behind. And when you say looking back and looking to the future, that's so much what this is. And there's so many great people in the business world that weren't getting funding for their businesses, and we don't want to leave them behind. What are some of the differences in this bank, and how would you help those people come forward?
Well, we're doing a lot of things to help people come forward, and even right now, as we're raising capital for the bank, we're offering a lot of opportunities for people who would not have normally had an opportunity to invest in a bank, because we're doing it from grassroots. We're offering the opportunity to women who are in our community by doing the presentations locally in our bank location. And then from a business standpoint, we're offering opportunities for businesses because we're partnering with incubators and organizations to make sure that we're providing education for business owners, and also partnering with leaders within the bank to share their perspectives and their experiences as they've grown their businesses.
And as an entrepreneur who started your own business, did you find that banks were willing to loan you money and get behind you? Or was that a journey in itself?
I think it was easier for me because my whole career has been in banking, so I knew what I had to bring to the table. And I've had this conversation with other female entrepreneurs who say, with a banking background, they know what the standard is for, say, a male applicant, and so you come to the bank with standards that exceed that, more collateral than they would ask for, and more of a plan than they would ask for, because you are sometimes intimidated, but you also understand that sometimes you have to exceed a standard. So it wasn't as difficult for me as it could have been because I knew what the standards were, but I'm a banker, and most entrepreneurs are not bankers. So there's this whole mystery around financial services that we really want to be a part of changing the communication around it so that it's not a mystery, so that an entrepreneur can learn what they need to learn so that they can scale and grow their business if they choose to. It's about cracking the barrier between banks who speak a different language, and we do it. We get caught in our own acronyms and things like that. But really part of the journey we're trying to create for entrepreneurs is a safer place, or a place for educational opportunities to bridge the gap between you may be the best at what you do in your niche, but you need to understand about financial services to be able to take the next step.
Well, they say that about doctors, right? They have a hard time, not John, but other doctors, my cousin, but other doctors are so great at being physicians, but when it comes to running a business, it's really difficult.
Right.
And I know for me, even when you offered to give me the packet, I was like, well, that's not really my cup of tea. Rob would probably look at that with me. But I appreciated that I could ask really basic questions, and what really drew me to your mission was you say profit with a purpose, because I think now more than ever during COVID, we all had time to slow down. Yes. We had time to think about our relationships, to think about our daily lives and our businesses, to see who's in our world and who we work with and how strong that is and who we trust the most.
So we say it's an unusual time to be starting a bank.
It is.
Right? It's an unusual time. But it's a great time because people are making, as you say, very deliberate decisions about who they want to engage in business with, what's important in their lives, how they want to emphasize whatever parts of their lives they want to. So it's really a perfect time.
Yeah. And to the point of how we're helping to educate our or help our business clients, our technology actually allows us to spend more time with our business clients, because we're actually reducing the traditional underwriting process down from 20 hours to 1 hour or less. So that gives us a lot more time to spend time in the community with our business clients, and for those who are trying to grow their business and understand how to manage their finances and learn more about banking and how banking can help their business. So it's a great opportunity for everyone, for us as a bank and for our business clients as well.
And we were saying that, or I was saying that to you when I first met you. We just bought a property, and what we had to do to buy a piece of property, because we're business owners as opposed to someone who works for someone else, is really challenging. And when we look at other people who may get loans, it was just a very confusing process and so time consuming and back and forth and signatures and different things. And that to me, I would say, and certainly men have a hard time balancing things, but I feel like as women we're even more multitaskers with that I'm going also to the grocery store and picking up from carpool, and I'm Bella's Uber driver, and then I have to go to the bank too, and I have to go there 5 times, and I have to sign everything.
It sounds familiar. She's
so
going, yes.
Talk about that a little bit, because that's a reality.
Yeah, it is. And I think that a lot of what we've designed the bank around is that type of a business owner, because you're consumed with your clients during your business day. And it's when your business day ends that you're thinking about, how am I going to run my business? And those are, so we've built the bank around the ideas that we can provide extended hours of service, we can provide different levels of service, we can be available in the channels and the ways in which our clients need us to be, whether that's after dinner's cooked, after the kids are in bed, or whatever that is. And so we'll be rolling out different levels of that type of availability, because life is different. It isn't 9 to 5 for running your business.
No, and sometimes it's just, at 7 or 8 o'clock is when I can think about
Yes.
what I didn't get to on my to-do list,
exactly.
because I've literally been responding to everything
Yes.
coming at me as opposed to having
Yes.
a moment to be proactive. So I
Yes.
think that's hugely a help for entrepreneurs, because it is so difficult.
And automating the things that can be automated, and so that, like Laquita said, we spend our time on the relationship, because that's what matters, the relationship.
Absolutely. And then talk a little bit about, so connection, community. I was fascinated to know that you could also have more opportunities with the bank, because you're working with other banks, because there's a value in working with a minority female-owned bank.
Right.
Tell a little bit about that so people can see, because there is a concern, I know, with some people that I talk to about, well, it's a small bank. How do I know? How do I know that I can trust this smaller bank? Don't I need to be with the bigger bank?
And so one thing is, we always tell people, is we have to follow the same rules. The same rules apply whether you're JP Morgan Chase or whether you're Agility Bank. So we're all following the same rules. So it's the same standard in terms of safety, soundness, whether your money's safe, and all of that. But the difference that we bring as a minority depository institution, which is a technical term, it's a special type of charter, but what it does is opens up a door for us to partner with those larger financial institutions. They want to work with us to reach deeper into our community, and to have more of an impact in the community, because banks are regulated to make sure that we do reach into the community and we reinvest in the community. It's part of the rules we have to follow.
Interesting.
So larger institutions can work with us. They can magnify their impact through us. It creates a natural partnership, which really helps the bank propel itself forward. Having these type of big partners is a great opportunity for us.
Yes. And like, to actually know and get to talk to you, I was thinking back to when I grew up, the pharmacist knew us, and it's that kind of personal relationship and carrying it through. The name itself is amazing, Agility. So you're able to
Be responsive.
pivot. Can we
Yes.
use that term without being
An overused term. but yes,
exactly?
overkill.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about some of the things that I read you saying about the name. You can move quickly, you keep customers ahead of the curve, you adapt to change, you create opportunities.
And if you have that mindset, you understand that you're building a bank that's the bank of the future, which means you have to continue to be nimble, you have to continue to be agile, because the banking ecosystem and everything around how we bank and how transactions occur, all that's changing minute by minute. It's so accelerated right now in terms of transformation. And if you're a bank that's agile, you're in the middle of that for your clients, and you're making sure that you're always able to move forward, always able to offer what's important for your clients. You're not stuck in a framework that won't move, that's immutable. And so it's really about being a bank of the future. We talk about that all the time. Being agile so that we can adapt and be there for our clients. Because as you and I sit here today, the way you conduct your transactions today, and we look at it in 5 years, let's sit down in 5 years and talk about it, it will be very, very different. And we'll be in the middle of that for our clients.
Well, I think we had such a change in the way we ran our business. We were talking about, we used to buy a watch that we paid $6,000 for, and we could make $500 to $1,000. Now we have to spend $18,000 to $20,000 on that same watch, so we need more money. Or a deal comes in that we need to buy. It's interesting because costs have gone up with so many things. Shipping has been such a problem. So maybe we can get into more specifics. Do you have opportunities? Is it a line of credit? Like, how do you work with those details?
Why don't you talk about it on the lending side for sure, Laquita?
Sure. And I'd like to touch on being nimble too. Another thing is that we're offering several different ways that our business clients can connect with us. So if our business client wants to come into the office to bank, they can. If they want to talk to us over online, they can. If they want to call us, we can talk to them that way. If they want to meet in person at their office, we're able to do that as well. So that's another part of being nimble and being able to, I guess, work the way the business client wants to, what's convenient for them. But from a lending standpoint, we have a company that a fintech company that we're partnering with that allows us to initiate loans in a number of different ways. We can do it from the office, or the business client can go online and apply. And the system will ask about 6 to 7 questions. And once the client has answered all those questions online, we'll get an approval, or we will be prompted to call the client to talk with them about the loan that they've applied for. So it's really a huge opportunity for the business client, because they don't have to gather as many documents as they would normally have to gather in most cases. And it streamlines the underwriting process for them.
And is that putting you a little bit more risk because there's not as much information that you're getting, or is it still backed in the same way?
It would sound that way, but that's not the case. It still uses the same data points that a person would use manually. It's just doing it in an automated fashion, and it takes our loan policy, which is our appetite for risk and how we want to do lending, and it puts it into the system and embeds it in the system. So it's the same controls, it's just in an automated fashion. And it's faster, and so it frees us up to do more of the relationship piece of the lending. So whether it's a loan from $5,000 to $500,000, they all follow a similar process. We're just making that more efficient and using our time more wisely. And the technology has been there. It's vetted and used by other banks. Just usually community banks build a framework and stick with it for quite a long period of time. And an agile bank builds a different framework and moves forward.
Tell us a little bit about the other people on your team, because that I also found fascinating. Everyone knows that have watched our podcast before. I'm a huge advocate to stop sex trafficking, and you guys have a number of women working to help with women's issues. I know men and women could be abducted into trafficking, but tell a little bit about the other people that you have as advisors.
So we have an advisory board that's intact, and our chair is Amy Leggio, who works with a local Hope Rising, one of the groups that's very active in trafficking and anti-trafficking, and remediation and mitigation and all the things that have to happen because of the fact that there is trafficking going on. But she's a great example of leadership in Houston that's here, that's come to the table to say, this is important to me, and I want to work with and be a part of a bank that's got a mission of having an impact. We're a bank for everyone, so we'll be banking everyone in Houston, but we have a special mission around women and minority-owned businesses. So as women as a special focus, that's easy for us. We all understand what the issues are, and we want to be involved in them. So Amy's a great example of someone who's here with us. All of our board members are very engaged in the entire community, from whether it's Maureen Sanders in the medical center at the San Jose Clinic, or it's Edna Meyer Nelson, who you know, Edna, with her involvement in different organizations here in town, or Roxanne Chargois and her involvement in various women's groups as well as minority groups. So, I mean, we're just all engaged people. So it's part of our DNA. When we talk about other banks nominating a diversity, equity, and inclusion officer and building a diversity, equity, and inclusion framework, it's who we are. So it's just inherent in how we operate and how we built the bank.
Yes. Yeah, we actually have 25% of our team is foreign born. So it really reflects Houston, because that is the same percentage of Houston that's foreign born.
It's so true. I mean, it's really at our core. And then one of the other facts that I read was you're the only one Denovo Bank in Houston since 2008. What does that even mean?
Actually, there's one other bank in Houston. So there's been, because of the economy and because of all kinds of things that happened in like the 2008 Great Recession and all of that, there were no new banks started nationally after, I think, one of our team members was associated with was one of the last ones in like 2008 that was opened. And the regulators said, there's too much going on. We're not quite sure. We don't really want all these new banks. And there was a time where no one was opening new banks. We're just hitting a new resurgence around this. And so there was one other bank started in this community, very much the typical community bank that we're used to in Houston, owned and operated by men, great traditional type of a profile of a bank. We're just different than that. But they're very successful. They've stepped into a gap in the market that we already identify was there, and we'll be stepping into that same gap. So there's great opportunity for us as well. We're just a different profile. So we say we're not your grandfather's bank. Nothing wrong with your grandfather's bank. It's a great heritage and a great place to come from. We're just a different bank.
And we were talking to you about how, or I was saying we have a bank that we work with, but we like having two different banks because there's different needs that you have too. So address that a little bit.
Sure. So in my 23 years in banking, about 17 of those years was busy working with business clients, advising them on their cash flow and helping them with their lending. And after a while, I actually started advising my business clients to have two banks. One bank for technology, usually the larger banks for technology, and then a smaller bank for relationship. And that's really what I found in working in larger banks for most of my career. I found that it was hard for us to really always have a good connection with the business clients because we were working with so many of them. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think there's a place for both types of banks. And then what I heard from a lot of the business clients who were with smaller banks, well, they would always say, well, they know me and I can call and I can and I can have things done over the phone and I don't have to go in, or they know me when I walk in the door. And that was always really intriguing for me because it was really what I wanted to do, was to really be able to be a part or a partner with that business owner to make sure that I was guiding them and helping them from a financial standpoint. Often business clients have their CPA, they have their attorney, but the banker is a lot of times left out of the picture, and that's really it's very important to have all three so that the company can be cohesive in making sure that the banker is implementing what the CPA and the attorney are giving guidance on, and also the banker also gives guidance to the CPA and the attorney in a lot of cases. So it's important to have all three. So relationship is really important, and that's really what we're looking to build with our business clients, is being a part of their ecosystem and actually providing opportunities for other things that are important in their business as well.
And we also think you should have a watch guy, a jewelry guy, and a handbag guy, girl, which would be us.
Got it. That makes sense.
Yes. But I feel like we had this pendulum swing, right? That it was, we need to go everything technology, and we don't need to have the touch point. And now we're really going back to touch points of understanding people, understanding their needs, so you can move with their business as it's moving and as things are changing. And that was the other thing that really made me compelled to be a part of this, is I believe my business growth has happened because I've worked with other successful people. And I think there's such an opportunity to connect with other people and grow. And this is going to be a part of the DNA also, as it's not just a bank, but there's going to be opportunities to meet other people, to network, and to do other things. Let's talk a little bit about that, the connection side of the bank.
We definitely say that we're more than just an account. And I think part of this stems from, I've worked with so many community banks, and some of the relationships I've seen in community banks are just unbelievable. So when we say community banks, we mean not the big guys, we mean a certain asset size, but they're really the banks that are able to take the time to understand their customers. And the emphasis on relationship has always been there for community banks. The art of it going forward is, how do you balance the technology with the relationship?
Yes.
And for us, the relationship is still tantamount. We'll build around technology. We love technology. We understand technology. We know that's the future.
Yes.
People still want a relationship. They still want a trusted
advisor. Pick up a phone and call, and not hit 2 and then 10 and then 5 and then wait for 10 minutes. And then get someone that's never talked to them before.
And money is emotion, right? Money is emotional. Banking transactions are emotional. We can be talking about business all we want, but people are emotional about money. And so if we can understand that as their banker, and we can understand that there's a relationship around the financial transaction, then we're your bank. I mean, we're the place that I would want to be. This is about building the bank that we all want to be at, where we want to be part of that relationship. So I know, like anybody that's ever closed on a mortgage, it's an emotional, huge upheaval, right?
So emotional.
Most business transactions can be emotional as well. Even if people don't want to talk about the emotion, there's emotion around the transaction. And so I think women
oftentimes fear borrowing that much money and hoping that, or just angst over the next step, and is it the right step? And if they say if your goal doesn't scare you a little bit, it's not big enough. It's not a big enough goal, or I'm maybe not quoting it right, but I feel like that's such a part of it. Is every time I take a huge leap forward, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but overall, you have to be willing to do that. And the other thing that I really connected with is we talked a little bit about Malcolm Gladwell when we met. And one of the things I found most fascinating was that a lot of people are taught by their families that they could ask questions and not accept no's. But then there's other people that are not brought up with that same experience. Bella, unfortunately, knows never to accept no, and she uses that on me all the time. But I feel like so many people, I think I gave the example of one of my friends was helping some people that work with her, and they were told that their surgery would be $250,000, and they were trying to mortgage their house and do all this, and she said, no, I'll call for you. And she got it for like $10,000 or something, because she knew not to accept that as the fact and to keep pushing. And that's the other thing I see as an opportunity here, is that you don't even know sometimes the right question.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, how to even get there. And I love that this is set up in a way that you're not intimidated, because I see with my daughter, and I know when I'm in huge groups, I'm intimidated to ask a question that I might look foolish. So talk a little bit about how you're helping these businesses through that process.
Your banker is your advocate.
Right, yeah. As a banker is always the advocate for the business client. And being in a community bank, a smaller bank, it allows us to be able to educate our business clients on how to find different resources. Outsource, they may need to outsource some things. So we're a guide for them to be able to make running their business easier, and also provide knowledge and exposure to what would make a better opportunity for them to grow their business.
And within the bank, we're going to offer tools as well, especially for a startup business. You don't know things about running a business necessarily. So some of our tools are designed around how to get your accounting up and running, and to automate your accounts receivable so your cash flow is better, and what to do if you hire an employee and you need some help, some resources, but you can't afford to hire somebody full-time to do that. And so we are building different pieces into the bank that are resources for business owners. So that but in addition to sage advice that we would offer and being advocates for our clients, we also have, I mentioned earlier, our advisory board, where each one of those advisory board members is committed to giving back in some way. They want to give a hand up. They want to provide either the richness of their experience that they'll share, what not to do they'll share, those kind of things. So we really have also, I think Laquita's mentioned it a few times, the educational component to around what we're doing in the bank.
And you'll be creating opportunities for business owners to meet each other?
Oh, yes, yes. So a lot of different ways through the advisory board and the activities that they're going to be up to, but we'll also be doing, they may appear to be social engagements in some respect, but they're really opportunities for business owners to network and be think tanks. And that's an opportunity. We've seen the energy in the room a few times when we've just put people in the room together and allowed them to start to brainstorm and share knowledge and information and resources, and it just takes on a life of its own. And I think we say this a lot about the bank. It's really about just making space for it to happen. Right. And so we're making space for it to happen.
Yeah. For example, we have a lunch today that we're hosting for a group of women to get together and really just meet each other and network. And when we come together, we figure it out. I mean, there's not a huge agenda. We'll talk a little bit about the bank, but mostly they'll share their backgrounds, what experiences they have, and go from there. So we're going to offer a lot of opportunities for women and men to come together and learn from each other.
I think it's so great because that's where, like you said, that's where the magic happens. I love going to fashion events and charity events. And before I was the Vintage Contessa, I worked with my family business. So I would go at night to fashion and charity events. And I was always hoping, and in my mind, I felt like it was successful if I could meet a person I connected with on a deeper level. And we've talked a little bit about that, like getting past that, like going into deeper conversation, getting to a meaningful place. And I think that if someone's a business owner and going to these events, that you've already kind of weeded through the people that, and you can learn so much by someone else's mistake. Stephanie Suru has been our podcast guest, and she's getting together with us to talk about the bank, but her business profile of putting this space together where women could work together.
Literally making space for it to happen.
Yes.
Literally doing it.
The She Space, and she and her daughter-in-law, Katie, and this amazing opportunity for women to work side by side, but then be there for each other to pull each other up. And men are a big part of this journey. Bella and I talked a lot about, was it better for her to go to an all-girls school or to be at a school with boys and girls? And for her personality, because she's a math girl, I think it helps her to be in a space with men, because then she understands for the rest of her life where they're coming from and how they're operating it.
Right.
But so we're not excluding men from this journey, and I appreciate that you say it's for everyone, even though it's created by females.
Well, I think it's an interesting opportunity, and when we look at Laquita's pipeline of business for when we open, it's a complete mix. And when we look at our shareholders, we're having to very carefully balance, because we'll be female owned. We have to be very carefully balanced. So it's definitely an inclusive. And our chief technology officer is a guy, and our CFO is a guy. I mean, we have people at the table, but we are that inclusive experience for a community bank. But our mission is about women and minority-owned business, and we're a business bank, and that's our mission. I think there's so many different ways we can do things in terms of building community for this community bank. So even then, technology comes into it. There's this community experience, but there's also community in a technological phase as well for the bank. And that's where things are moving, where they already are in many regards, and where they're moving. So there's just so much for us to do in terms of building community in different ways.
So if people wanted to get involved, how would they reach out to you, and what would be kind of next steps?
Well, we're at 2401 North Shepherd in the Heights, so we have manifested the bank. We are in the bank, and we're in the last steps of our capital raise. So you can come visit us there. You can call either one of us. We can make our numbers. We'll tell our numbers in just a moment. So you can come see us. You can go to our website and post a message there. Agility Banking, www.agilitybanking.com. You Google us, we'll pop up, I'm sure. And the main number is 713-324-8810. So you can call us and talk to any one of us there, any one of the staff that are ready to open the bank any minute.
So will this be the first in Houston, the first in the state of Texas that's minority owned and founded?
So there are other minority depository institutions. What we are the first bank that has started with the purpose of being this women-owned, women-led bank. So there are others that have become that over time. We're the ones who said out of the gate, we want to be this is our DNA. And so we're the first to start with that purpose. In the United States.
In the United States. That's what I wanted you to say.
Yes.
And that's actually really what I lead with, because I feel like when I'm telling people about the opportunity, because it is so
right here in Houston that we're doing this. We're changing the landscape in what may be a subtle way, but a lasting way. And we're doing it here.
Other women may be majority owners because they've inherited it or it's grown, but this is founded with the purpose.
This was our intent.
And intent.
Our intent was to bring women along both in financial services as well as in their businesses, to be at the table in the equity position at the bank, in the C-suite at the bank, and to be a presence in the financial landscape.
And if you're loaning to women who are underserved and to minorities who are not getting as much access, talk a little bit more. You mentioned it earlier. Does that put the success of the bank more at risk to invest with it?
Oh, that's so funny. I would never think of it from that perspective.
But someone asked me that.
Isn't that interesting? See, perspective is everything.
It
and
is.
So we need to respond to that.
I think it's good to respond to that. If you're focusing on something no one's ever done before, does that put you more at risk?
Well, it's interesting because by law, we should all be doing that because there should not be any disparity in terms of access to credit or banking. So we're just emphasizing the fact that the playing field should be level. In terms of whether it would impact our success or not, I think it's probably the opposite. Where we're sitting today with the conversations around diversity and equity and inclusion and the focus by everybody, regular people who are not bankers, the focus on what's really happening in terms of equity and fairness. That focus is really reinforcing for us some of these partners we talked about earlier. We would be working with the larger institutions, large corporate companies who have a shareholder mandate for diversity in their providers. It actually provides a little bit, I believe, a little bit of a boost for us in knowing that people are making these deliberate decisions to participate in and engage with other like-minded businesses or companies who are all investing in diversity and equity and inclusion. I think it adds to us.
And I love that, a deliberate choice. If we all made deliberate choices in our life every day, how much better would we all be?
It's about living consciously. How hard is that to do every day? It's not easy.
I call it aligning your words and deeds. And it is, it's a fine line, but when you do it so regularly, it takes so much of the guesswork out because you know what the answer is. And you are not confused by what decision to make because you know you've focused on your purpose. And once you define your purpose and you're focused on it, then everything else becomes less important.
It's easy to do the right thing because you know what the right thing is.
That's right.
Yes.
It's aligned with your purpose.
It is.
Yes.
And so I loved that. That was one of my key things that I loved the most when I met you guys is profit with a purpose. So when it comes to, we've all had so many opportunities of late to look at politics and look at health and look at the world and say, how do I know it's real? How do I know someone's authentic? How do I know that that is true and just and right? So tell us a little bit about in your gut, like how do you answer that question?
Oh, that's interesting.
What do you look at with the business? What do you look at with the person you meet? Because I'm really trying to focus on that myself. I mean, we do it every day, and the way I came up with this question is people walk into our store and they see all these amazing things and they're like, wow, you bought all of this? How do you know all this is real? And I'm like, that's a question that's not just about a Louis Vuitton bag.
No.
Do you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. Well, how I know if something is right is by aligning with what's inside of me. Because I think everything that we need is there. It's inside. But it's about connecting with connecting with my source to know that everything that I need is inside. And when I make a decision, I really just take the time to think about what I've learned from my source, which is within myself, to make that decision. And I'll tie that to my decision to join Agility Bank. During in the year before the pandemic and during the pandemic, I did a lot of work on understanding abundance understanding.
Tell them about your book.
Well, there's a
Well,
Oh, that.
yeah. Well, yeah, there's a book. I have a book in process, in the process of being published, called Roadmap to Abundance. And throughout 2019 and 2020, I did a lot of, just kind of went on a journey of learning who I am and learning what was promised to me. And through that process, just all of these things started happening to open doors. And so the book was really a learning experience for myself, to be able to be guided by what's inside. And joining the agility team was one of those things that came about. And it was, as Lauren said earlier, like a natural progression. As I looked back and I looked at all of the different things that happened in my life over the years, being able to work in different banks and meet different people and all of the different technical training that I had over the years, and it was the right thing to do. So I think everything ties together, and that's one of the things that we laugh about sometimes, is that everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely.
There's no coincidences. We're where we are because this is where we should be. So, so it's been very exciting.
with abundance, it's being open to it and asking for it and looking for it, because I feel like
Listening for it. Listening
so
for
many things were in front of me that I didn't grab a hold of.
And being fearless. That
Well,
was
we were
what
just talking about.
because
Yes.
This is a new experience for us.
That fear I mentioned earlier.
Yes. Being fearless. Because
Yeah.
But it's so much easier to be
It's a
fearless
jump
when you
when
have,
you have
a
wingman.
A wingman. Oh, I can't believe you just said that.
I
Yeah,
love that.
It's so
Your
much
fearless
easier than
wingman. Yes.
and a partner. And like, the first time I talked to her, and this was through Zoom the first time we met.
Oh,
so you know how nice,
wow.
you talk about authentic, a one-on-one, an in-person relationship.
Yeah, you can.
But we had to start with Zoom. But still her eyes lit up. And I thought, oh, she gets it. She gets
could
it.
see
She
the
gets where I'm
twinkle,
trying
yeah.
to go. And so when you know, I guess the whole point about being authentic is, yes, you're vulnerable, and I think it's hard to be sometimes when you're afraid, but if you surround yourself with like-minded people,
Yeah.
it's so much easier. And then you can do just about anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's an interesting journey.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, we have reached our time limit, because we could talk for so long. But when I met you guys, it was such an aha moment for me. It was just, wow, this is exactly the path I've been on. And someone I was talking to at a party last night about it said, so why are you doing this? And I said, I feel like I've opened my mind to see things differently. And I'm working on this TED Talk I'm doing, Living the Authentic Life. And I too have researched for a year and a half and spent so much time. And I wholeheartedly agree that we have everything within us and we are capable of greatness. We just have to harness it and work through the fear. And the way we do that is by collectively as a community coming together. So what you said and what you've said today, I was like, I am drinking your Kool-Aid. This is a way to financially invest in what I'm saying I want to do, is moving the needle, is changing the opportunities for women and minorities to really change the needle, move forward in our community and be the difference that we want. And if you start with one person and every day you just do what you can, we can really change where
Be
we're
the change you want to see in the world, right?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much,
Well, thank
ladies.
you for listening to us and letting us talk as well. Thank you so much.
This is great.
Yes, and you can reach out to us on Instagram through the Vintage Contessa. Send us a direct message. I can connect you with these ladies. We'll be posting their contact information on our stories on Instagram.
Thank you.
You can find this on Facebook and YouTube and SoundCloud and everywhere you get your podcast. And a big shout out to the handsome, fabulous, smart, incredible Adam Andrus with the most amazing hair.
Thank you, Adam.
And I love him and all the work he does to make us look so good. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you next week on Living the Authentic Life.
Thank you. Thank you.